Masters Shanghai has just started, with already huge aces and insane clutches being seen throughout the first couple matches, with the opening match of the event between North America's G2 and Korea's T1 being more than a worthy matchup, with both teams proving they deserve the spot in the Masters, with the match going to overtime to decide the winner. And I know a lot of my America's audience probably didn't get to watch the game live, and have had to rely on the scoreboard and highlights to understand the first outcome. So I wanted to dive deep and analyze why G2 took the victory, sending T1 to the brink of elimination already. And there are a few small things that G2 and T1 do differently from other teams that just might allow them to make a good run with this weird map pool. But it definitely wasn't pretty for either of them. So before G2 and T1 played each other, there was a lot of uncertainty for both teams, as T1 scraped into the playoffs in the Pacific, where they were able to go on a run to qualify by beating Gen G in 3 maps. So hope started to rise for them, but after being blown out in their final 2 matches, and it looked like for T1 that while they were making an international event, they would most likely fade out quickly against top teams like they did all last year. But still, this is not the same team as 2023, with this match holding a lot of mystery for them, as anything could happen with young rookie Izu, who has been praised by every top Pacific player before he even stepped foot on the server, and Forsaken's older brother Xcrit, as he's an experienced leader in Counter-Strike. So there was no telling if they'd show out in their first Masters event, especially as they're up against G2, who also has so much uncertainty after switching from longtime teammate Net to duelist/Gecko player Icy. And just like T1, they weren't really expected to make it to Shanghai, as they were able to surprise everyone by going on a run in playoffs, but couldn't win it all, losing in their rematch against 100 Thieves in a 3-map sweep. But throughout this whole season and run, they've been mostly ignored, as while they've been one of the most consistent teams in VCT, they haven't shown anything next level that would put them further than possibly making out of the Swiss stage. But they have a lot to prove after everything that happened after they failed in their international debut as the Guard, where they weren't even able to win a match. They both had a lot to play for and prove, so everyone knew it would go down to the bitter end. The map picks for these teams went in a unique way, as T1 decided on Breeze after having success against Gen G in the playoffs, and G2 went with Icebox, which they've had a great comp for, while T1 has banned Icebox a good amount of times, where they've kind of played a really weird comp that sometimes works but looked unlikely against a solid, well put together team like G2. But neither map went as planned, forcing a do-or-die map 3 on Lotus. But let's first look at how G2 was able to do something on Breeze that the runners-up of Madrid couldn't against T1. G2 came out with a 5-1 lead on defense, as they were consistently able to shut down the deep dives by Izu that usually in the Pacific would give them a lot of space on site for the plant. But in this half, it resulted in him starting 0-5 before they adjusted to a slower attack. But something else G2 did that was powerful against T1 that other teams don't do is fight in cave, as most teams just pop flash and take an initial peek with only one player with everyone else playing back on site. G2 has multiple players fighting here, which resulted in them winning duels when T1 are there, as the fights are taken in a favorable spot for G2 in the choke point, rather than wide open on site. But their attack was where they started pulling away, as after winning the pistol thanks to a clutch by Leaf, they were able to go on a run thanks to their ability to use their own Yoru, take space on B to isolate players, giving them a 13-8 win to put them 1 map away from victory. And with G2 moving on to their map pick of Icebox, everything looked like it was going as planned. But then we saw one of the weirdest and stupidest halves of Valorant that could not be stopped one bit by G2. As T1 attacked A every single round, with him only going toward B once, and they still ended at A, with him by the end of the half just 5 stacking, and really, G2 tried everything, with heavy mid flanks, early pressure to take the fights early, full retakes, even 4 stacking B, but nothing worked. And it kind of comes down to the strats and unique comp T1 used, with Izu on Reyna and Xcrit on his beloved Chamber, playing to their abilities to win duels so consistently, along with some clever util combos with the snake bites and shark darts, which would allow them even easier duels that they'd win every time. And round 5 is a great example of this, as even when G2 knew that T1 was going to attack A, T1 is actually able to use Jonah P's Harbor Wall to take a more aggressive position as they push onto site. G2 are good at not peeking too far, and when they feel pressure, Leaf moves off site to set up for a 5v5 retake, where they're looking to possibly flank them. This is a good adjustment by G2, as T1 has not really been covering their flank, and with their Viper Wall up, it slows down T1. And this all looks like a great position for G2 going into the post plant, and it would really against a normal comp. But T1 understands themselves way better, and understands that with this comp, they don't need space, they just need to play off each other. So in this situation, they don't really need anyone offsite, as after they pop the Viper's pit, only Saya player decides to take the space back towards A nest, where he has a chance to actually get multiple, but makes the most of his position to give the rest of T1 info. And while it requires Rossi to pull off an insane 1v3 to win, to go along with his 20-5 scoreline, this setup of hit A hard, saving util for the post plant, and only really trading off each other on site worked well for this comp, as they almost treated this map like ranked, with Excret ending G2 with a yay-like headhunter round showing that Chamber isn't dead on Icebox, giving the former guard players flashbacks, as they fell 13-1 to be one of the biggest blowouts since Gambit 13-0'd Team Secret in the first Champions event in 2021, forcing a map 3 on Lotus where both teams have had their highs and lows with it. The comps are about the same, other than Excret again picking up Chamber over the normal pick of KJ, and while it gives T1 less anchor ability, it allowed them more firepower, as Excret throughout their defensive side had an op in his hand in most important rounds, with him forcing G2 to decide each round if they'll push Mound or Rebel quick to pressure the op, or have to play more cautious in fear of Excret holding the angle. But he wasn't even the main fear for G2, as they were destroyed by their old teammate Saya player, as every time G2 avoided the op, they ran into a super smart Saya player who could time his pushes with the rest of his team to give him an insane scoreline leading to a 9-3 half. But G2 came back on their defending side, activating the curse, as T1 had some issues pushing onto site as Saya player started to struggle with Excret not being able to have as huge of an impact as he had before, with Leaf and Jonah P being the important pieces as the site anchors that could not be taken out to push it to overtime, where Leaf became the hero yet again in the tense spots, as in the first overtime he had a crazy spray down, which allowed them to barely win, moving it to map point for G2. And now all eyes were on T1 to fix their attacking side and push it to another overtime. But things were not looking good as Excret pushed too far forward, leaving T1 in a 4v5 as they contacted all the way up to site. And they continued to extend too far and get destroyed by the Omen Flash, and could not get a kill as they lost every fight, giving G2 an incredible comeback to push them within one of making the playoffs and fully redeeming themselves. While T1 falls to a similar fate, even with this new team, as they're again at risk of being eliminated early and being unmemorable in another international event. While I can't see either of these teams making it further than maybe making playoffs and being one of the first picks by the top teams to beat up on, they're both solid teams that have promise, but their ceilings are not high enough to truly make a deep run at the trophy in this tournament. Make sure you check out the most recent episode of Exit Frag, where he talked about our preview of Masters Shanghai. It was a fun episode, and it's just about to be outdated as the event continues, so go on and watch that to make fun of my terrible pick'ems. Also, make sure you're subscribed with notifications on so you don't miss a single video throughout Masters Shanghai.